Be seated.
Thank you, Your Honor. The state will call Sheila Schroeder to the stand.
Face me and raise your right hand. Do you promise the testimony you're about to give will be the truth and nothing but the truth? And
I
if
do.
so, say I do.
I do.
Have a seat. Mr. McCallum.
Thank you. If you could please position that microphone so you can speak into it so we can all hear you, okay? Could you please state your first and last name and spell them both for the record?
Sheila Schroeder, Sheila Schroeder.
And how are you employed?
I'm employed through the Department of Human Services.
What is the Department of Human Services?
It's a state agency, provides various services, including child protection.
And are you assigned to a particular role within the Department of Human Services?
I am
What's your role?
child protective worker.
What does it mean to be a child protective worker?
I get assigned intakes with time frames to meet with children and families, and then I gather information to make a determination if there's child abuse that has occurred or not.
Can you describe for the jury your educational background that equipped you to work for the Iowa Department of Human Services?
I have a 4-year degree in human services.
And when did you receive your degree?
2001, I believe.
And are you a social worker?
I'm employed as a child protective worker.
Have you worked as a social worker in the past?
Yes, I have.
How many years experience do you have in child protective work?
Approximately 20 years.
And how long have you worked for the Iowa Department of Human Services?
Since 2012,
Can you kind of describe for the jury, in general, how is it that the Iowa Department of Human Services, and you in particular, get involved to do that assessment you talked about to decide if a child has been abused or neglected?
the Department of Human Services has a hotline for child abuse. Persons in the community, whether it be doctors, teachers, mandatory reporters, or permissive reporters, call the hotline. There's a screening process to accept child abuse or not, and as workers we get assigned if it's accepted.
So if there's an allegation that's accepted by the department that a particular child or children have maybe or potentially been subjected to child abuse or neglect, is it your job to go do an assessment and do interviews and things like that?
Yes, it is.
How was it that you got involved in this case in an assessment involving the defendant's family?
I was assigned after the allegation came in after hours. I was assigned approximately 2 days after it was formally accepted for child abuse.
And you, in fact, on September 1st, 2017, or 2 days after Sterling's death, you went and visited with the defendant's child, Nala, correct?
That is correct.
Where did you visit her at in general?
At the foster home?
Did you have a chance to interact with Nala?
Yes, I did.
How would you describe her?
I recall her not using her words to communicate with me. I recall her hissing at me and not wanting to be near me.
Was she able to communicate with you?
Not with her words, no.
When you were interacting with Nala, were you able to look at her physical appearance?
Yes, I was.
Did you have any concerns that she had been subjected to maltreatment or physical abuse or child neglect or abuse?
I recall she had no signs of physical maltreatment from my observation.
Did she appear to be healthy?
She did.
Did she appear to be well fed?
She appeared that way, yes.
She wasn't skinny or not appearing to be her stated age?
No, she wasn't.
Did you also, on September 1st, 2017, try to talk to Nala's parents and Sterling's parents, Cheyenne Harris and the defendant, Zach Koehn?
Yes.
Why did you want to talk to them?
Part of my assessment, we do talk to the parents, non-custodial and custodial parents.
And so what were you hoping to learn in talking to the defendant, Mr. Koehn?
A determination of what he believed had happened to his son.
And were you able to make contact and set up a meeting with Mr. Koehn?
Yes.
Would you characterize Mr. Koehn as being wanting to meet with you, reluctant to meet with you, or something else?
What I recall is it took several phone calls back and forth between him, Mr. Koehn, and Cheyenne before they agreed to meet with me that day.
Did they ask to meet in a particular location?
Yes, they did.
Who set the location?
The couple did.
And where did you meet with Mr. Koehn and Ms. Harris?
At the library in Osage.
And your report says you met with them at approximately 2:45 p.m. on September 1st, 2017. Is that what you recall?
That is correct.
When you met with Mr. Koehn, the defendant in this case, can you kind of describe his demeanor or how he was acting?
What I recall in the interview, his demeanor presented as that he was laughing throughout the contact that I had.
When you say laughing, what do you mean?
That he was laughing in response to our discussion that we were having.
And this was 2 days after the death of his son?
That is correct.
Did you find that unusual?
I did.
Why?
Typically, when I meet with families who have a child that suffered maltreatment, they're not laughing. They're either frustrated, they're angry, or they're upset.
And it was so unusual that you noted it in your report, correct?
Yes.
I want to talk in particular about some of the information provided you by the defendant, Mr. Koehn, and only Mr. Koehn. I'm not asking, so please don't volunteer any statements made by Ms. Harris, okay?
Yes.
Did you ask Mr. Koehn to describe what had happened to his son?
Yes, I did.
What did he tell you?
He explained Sterling's death as SIDS.
As SIDS?
Yes.
And do you know what SIDS is?
Sudden infant death syndrome.
Was he able to provide any other explanation for his son Sterling's death?
No, he did not.
Was he able to identify how often they were feeding their child Sterling?
Not specifically, no.
Was the defendant able to identify the last time that he fed or Sterling was fed a bottle?
I don't recall that Mr. Koehn identified a specific time that he had fed his child.
Was Mr. Koehn able to provide to you any time or any identifying parental care that he had provided to his son Sterling?
I don't recall any specific information from Mr. Koehn.
Did you ask Mr. Koehn if he was using any illegal drugs?
Yes, I did.
Why did you ask that?
As part of our assessment, we talk about mental health, substance use, past maltreatment, the home environment, and specific information regarding the child.
Let's start with the mental health. Did Mr. Koehn identify any concerns with his own mental health?
No, he did not.
He didn't claim he was having any mental health issues?
I don't recall him specifically identifying any mental health.
And if he had, you would have noted that in your report, correct?
Yes, I would have.
And it's not in your report, is it?
It is not.
Now, you also said that you asked him about substance abuse. What did Mr. Koehn, the defendant, tell you about his illegal drug usage?
That he had used methamphetamine.
Why would the department be concerned with a parent using methamphetamine?
Methamphetamine affects how adults parent their children.
How?
It affects their ability, such as if they're using methamphetamine, they may have paranoia, they may have irregular sleep patterns, which results in neglect to a child. They may be irritable. In some instances, they're actively using, they're not able to make inferences, including not focusing on relevant information, just generally poor parenting skills.
And did Mr. Koehn tell you how often he was using methamphetamine?
What I recall in my report is a couple of times a week.
Did Mr. Koehn identify whether or not he provided any drugs to Cheyenne Harris?
He did.
What did he say?
But he gives Cheyenne his leftovers from using his methamphetamine.
He said that Mr. Koehn's demeanor during his interview was unusual because he was laughing, correct?
Yes.
You also described in your report that he was dismissive, didn't you?
Yes.
What did you mean by that?
When I would ask him questions, he would refer, why don't I ask law enforcement, because he'd already talked about it. He wasn't willing to necessarily discuss things in detail without more prompting from me.
And what were you asking?
General questions about his parenting, his mental health, the family routine, just establishing a timeline that they had had with Sterling.
Ma'am, when you were meeting with Mr. Koehn, the defendant, and Cheyenne Harris, the mother and father of Nala and Sterling, had Nala been removed from the parents' care?
Yes, she had been.
And she was placed in foster care, correct?
Correct.
Has she been returned to the parents' care?
Not to my knowledge.
I have nothing further.
Ross? Thank you, Your Honor. Ma'am, prior to August 31st of 2017, when you were assigned to this case, you had no contact with Ms. Harris, correct?
That is correct.
And you had also not met Mr. Koehn before that day, right?
That is correct.
You did not know them at all?
I did not.
As I understand it, on August 30th, the day that DHS received the call, another worker did the initial child protective worker duties, correct?
Another worker made initial contact regarding Nala, yes.
That was Becky Hiles' call?
Yes.
And when you met with Mr. Koehn, how many days was it after Sterling had passed away?
I believe 2.
You were asked about him laughing, and you talked with the family about them laughing when you met with Mr. Koehn, or excuse me, about him laughing, correct?
Correct.
And it was explained to you that that's how Mr. Koehn acts when he's nervous, right?
That is correct.
It was also explained to you that that's how he acts when he's uncomfortable, correct?
Yes.
Makes sense to you that someone might be a little bit uncomfortable talking about the death of their child?
Can you ask the question again?
Yes. Would it make sense to you that someone would be uncomfortable talking about the death of their child?
Yes.
Does it also make sense to you that someone would be nervous talking about that?
Yes.
Especially somebody who works for the state?
Can you repeat the question?
Especially somebody who works for the state?
Can you ask the question a different way?
Would it make sense to you, especially that someone would be nervous talking about the death of their child to someone who works for the state of Iowa?
Yes.
Did you identify yourself as an investigator when you met Mr. Koehn?
Yes, I did.
Do you know Mr. Koehn's education background?
No, I do not.
Do you know whether Mr. Koehn was aware of the difference between DHS, Department of Criminal Investigation, or law enforcement otherwise?
Based on his comments, yes.
When Mr. Koehn told you that he used methamphetamine, he told you that he used it to stay awake at work, correct?
That is correct.
And he also told you that Cheyenne had found Sterling dead, correct?
Yes, he did.
And I believe you said that he told you that he thought it was SIDS.
That's correct.
Mr. Koehn told you that he did not change diapers for any of his children, correct?
Yes, he made that statement.
You talked about Mr. Koehn's attitude with you being dismissive, and he told you to go ask law enforcement. Were you aware that at this point Mr. Koehn had been interviewed by law enforcement?
Yes.
Can you imagine how trying it would be to discuss the death of your infant repeatedly, people asking the same questions?
Yes.
In the course of your investigation, you reviewed some medical records for Sterling, is that correct?
Yes.
And those records indicated to you that Sterling's umbilical cord was supposed to be tested, right?
Yes.
Was the umbilical cord tested?
It was.
And that test came back positive for methamphetamine, correct?
Yes.
Based on your position as a child protective worker, what does the presence of methamphetamine in a baby's umbilical cord mean?
It means that the mother used methamphetamine during her pregnancy.
Does it also mean that the infant may have methamphetamine present in his or her body?
Yes.
If an infant is born with an illegal substance such as methamphetamine in their body, that's grounds for DHS intervention, isn't it?
It is if it's reported to the hotline, yes.
Now, the records that you got that showed Sterling's umbilical cord have been tested with the Mercy Medical Center in Mason City, correct?
Yes.
The same record said that there was a social work referral made, right?
I believe so.
You followed up on that and contacted Mercy in Mason City, correct?
Yes.
Were you able to determine from your investigation whether a social worker had ever been contacted about this?
Can you repeat the question?
Yes. Based on your investigation and your contact with Mercy Hospital in Mason City, were you able to determine whether or not there had actually been a referral to a social worker for this family?
Can you clarify when you say social worker? Are you referring to an agency, a hospital?
An agency, a licensed social worker with the hospital, the Department of Human Services, any of those?
I need you to repeat the question.
When you followed up, I'll try to break it down. You had followed up on the report, the finding that there was methamphetamine in Sterling's umbilical cord, correct?
Correct.
And the records indicated to you that there had been a social work referral, right?
Yes, from within the hospital.
Were you able to determine during your investigation whether there had ever actually been a referral made
Or a referral made to where? I guess I'm confused by your question.
to a social worker? This family would be referred for social work, ever followed up on to your knowledge?
Specifically, no.
Are you aware well, you didn't find any records that any social workers had contact with the family when they were in the hospital, right?
I don't recall.
Or are you aware, as you sit here today, whether there were any social workers who had contact with Mr. Koehn, Sterling, or Cheyenne from between Sterling's birth on May 1st, 2017 until his death on August 30th?
I don't recall specifically.
To your knowledge, during Sterling's life, has he ever tested to find out if he had methamphetamine in his system?
Through the umbilical cord is the only test that I'm aware of specifically.
You talked about methamphetamine impacting parents. I want to follow up on that. Do you Do you understand the chemical the chemical effects of using methamphetamine on the brain?
Through the information through my trainings, yes.
So you're familiar that methamphetamine causes a surge in a chemical called dopamine, right?
I believe so.
And dopamine is something that it's a pleasure sensor in the brain, correct?
It is.
As methamphetamine causes a surge in dopamine, the brain decreases the natural dopamine that it produces, right?
What's your question?
Whether when a methamphetamine user uses that creates a surge in dopamine, the brain then reacts by reducing the amount of dopamine that it produces.
I'm not an expert, I can't answer that.
But you are familiar with the impact of methamphetamine on parenting, correct?
Yes.
Methamphetamine users get anxiety, correct?
They could, yes.
It can also cause fatigue.
Yes.
Methamphetamine impacts how a user thinks, right?
Yes.
Methamphetamine use can cause severe depression, right?
It could.
Could it also lead to what are called behavioral deficits?
Yes.
And so that we're clear, the behavioral deficit is too little of a type of behavior, right?
Can you ask the question again?
I'll ask it one more time, I apologize. What is a behavioral deficit?
Specific to parenting, is that what you're asking?
Just in general, what does it mean?
Could have a deficit by not paying attention to certain things in their life.
Behavioral deficit can also make an individual unable to do certain types of things, right?
Yes.
For example, somebody with a behavioral deficit may not be able to multitask, correct?
Yes.
And I believe your testimony in direct examination was that a methamphetamine user may not be able to focus on relevant information. Is that also accurate?
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. I don't have any other questions.
Redirect.
Thank you. Ms. Schroeder, first of all, about the umbilical cord test. Was the Department of Human Services aware of the test result of the umbilical test, cord test, prior to your involvement on August 30th, 2017, or August 31st, 2017?
No.
So is it your testimony that the hospital, whoever was in charge of the testing, did not report that positive test to the Iowa Department of Human Services?
That is correct.
So there was no failure by your agency to act on any test result, correct?
Yes.
Because you didn't know about it.
Yes.
I want to ask about your comments about the behavior of Mr. Koehn, the defendant. It was explained to you that his laughing was due to him being nervous, is that right?
Yes.
Did he say what he was being nervous about?
No, he did not.
And you also said that you could understand that somebody might be uncomfortable talking about the death of a child, correct?
Yes.
Would that, in your experience, be especially true if the person that was talking was responsible for that child's death?
Yes.
Nothing further.
Recross. You were asked about DHS's lack of knowledge about the umbilical cord test. Are hospital employees mandatory child abuse reporters?
Yes.
Would methamphetamine in an umbilical cord qualify as child abuse that should be reported?
Yes.
So is it safe to say that somebody, the hospital, did not do what the law required?
Yes.
I have no further questions.
Nothing for me, Your Honor.
Can this witness be excused?
Yes, Your Honor.
You're free to leave. Next witness.
State calls John Turbot.